What findings did you report to Dr. Cruz?
I reported that, the remains were consistent with Breasia Terrell based on the age estimation and then the radiographic and photographic comparisons there, and that I had found evidence of a minimum of 3 gunshot wounds with 4 defects consistent with bullet impacts.
All right. Did that conclude your responsibilities in this matter?
Yes.
I have no further questions, Your Honor.
Mr. Freeze. Thank you. Good morning.
Good morning.
Your conclusions, did those indicate that the gunshot wounds would have been suffered right there where the remains were found?
I cannot indicate that from the skeletal remains.
At least 2 of the gunshots were pass-throughs of the body? I don't know. The first one of them here, not the first, I can't tell the order either, but the impact to the mandible, it could have come to rest at the vertebrae there, it may not have gone out. The scapula, while there is a little bit of a hole there, we still have a lot of that bone that's frayed edges. That could have been its termination there as well. I can't tell from that. Can you tell from your examination how close the assailant would have been to Ms. Terrell when the trigger was pulled? I
cannot.
Did you find any evidence of sharp force trauma on the remains?
I did not.
It is common when sharp force trauma is used to kill someone, or even have been used as a method of harming someone but may not be the cause of death. You find sharp force trauma in remains such as these, correct?
It depends. There's areas like the abdomen where all we have is soft tissue. So in anthropology, if we did find anything, it's always a minimum because we can't say what didn't hit bone.
Okay. But if a machete were used and hit bone, you would expect to see evidence of sharp force trauma, correct?
If a machete hit bone, yes, I would expect to see evidence of that.
How about blunt force trauma? Was there any evidence of blunt force trauma?
I did not have any.
If blunt force trauma were to be found on a skeletal remains such as these, what would you look for here?
With blunt force trauma, you would see some form of fracturing occurring, assuming that that trauma was of a significant force to cause that skeletal fracturing. If you have blunt force that doesn't cause any fracturing to the bone, then I wouldn't be able to see that in the bone.
But like a baseball bat were used to break a bone, you would see that here in these remains, correct?
Yes.
Okay. You saw no evidence of that?
No.
That's all I have.
Thank you.
Ms. Cunningham.
Thank you. Dr. Garvin, since you were dealing with skeletal remains, was all of the tissue gone other than the areas that you've identified?
Yes. I mean, the scene photographs and I'm sure the autopsy photographs show the condition of the remains. The skeleton as laid out in my photograph there, the only difference was that that pelvic area had been macerated.
Certainly. And since we have no human tissue that encompasses the skeletal remains, is it difficult to determine whether or not there was sharp force trauma that was used?
Any soft tissue analyses is up to the forensic pathologist. I do not deal with that.
Thank you. I have no further questions.
You may step down.
Thank you.
Your Honor, the state calls Matt Dinkins.
All right, Gene, getting back to that lawyer analysis that we've done and sometimes been pretty brutal, you know, in terms of how prosecutors are putting a case in. Redirect is very dangerous for a prosecutor unless you have a point you need to make, because you could open up Pandora's box. I thought it was pretty tight. It was to the point, and it countered the arguments trying to be made by defense counsel. What were your thoughts?
Oh, I thought she should not have done a redirect, although she's been doing a great job. I don't think she needed it. I thought it came out on direct, or was painfully obvious, the conclusions from the redirect questions. I was surprised a little bit about the brevity of the cross. Maybe there's some strategy there. I would have asked maybe a few more questions, but that was a long direct, and there was maybe 2 minutes across.
Yeah, I mean, sometimes, Miguel, the fact is there's really not a lot to cross on with a witness, or it may not necessarily affect the theory of your case, but so it doesn't have to be long. But what did you think with the few questions that the defense had asked? What were they trying to get to in your mind?
You know, they're just trying to
show that even though she has a few findings, that one of the questions that I thought that I really liked was that the defense asked that she doesn't know when the trigger was pulled, right? So it starts, you know, it starts poking holes at her overall, her testimony, but you know, it's just about asking a few questions here and there. Overall, I thought her testimony was great, so it's hard to really pinpoint anything bad.
Yeah, that's an interesting witness and probably tells us a lot about where they're going. All right, guys, we're going to take a break. We'll come back on the other end with more, so please stay with us.